Hey everybody, it's Mr. Wagstaff. Cool stuff to talk about today. So we started this unit talking about war with World War II. We're going to finish the unit talking about another war, the Korean War. The Korean War was just as bad in United States history as Vietnam, with a lot more worldwide implications. And it's not nearly as talked about, mainly because Vietnam was on TV, and there's a whole other thing we'll talk about when we get to Vietnam. But today, we're going to talk about the crazy story that's the Korean War. Let's get started. So we're going to start today talking about a guy named Chiang Kai-shek in China. Now, you might be like, Mr. Wagstaff, Chiang Kai-shek, that's guy in China, that has nothing to do with Korea. And you would be right, but it all comes together. We learn in World War II that the whole world's connected. And this is a perfect example of it. So there's two guys that are really important here. The guy on the left, all right, that is Chiang Kai-shek. Guy on the right is Mao Zedong. I was actually really surprised to see a picture with them together because they're not going to like each other. So let me start out by giving you some background here. First off, they're in China, okay? So China, all right, is starting to modernize after World War II. The guy in charge is Chiang Kai-shek. Again, this is a picture of Chiang Kai-shek. Chiang Kai-shek has American support. The reason he has American support is because he's not communist. He's nationalist, which isn't necessarily like a democratic republic like us, but he's not communist. If you're not communist, America likes you, all right? So he runs China. There is a guy that is gaining some popularity in China, moving up through the ranks in a grassroots movement, a guy named Mao Zedong, who is communist, all right? America, we can't possibly let this Mao Zedong guy get any more popular here in China. So what we do is we start giving Chiang Kai-shek, this guy, tons of money so that he will become more popular. He's already in charge, all right? We give him a bunch of money so that he becomes more popular than this guy, Mao Zedong. The Marshall Plan, as we had talked about yesterday, works fantastic in all these European countries. You just throw money at them, they're no longer communist. The issue becomes, though, that Mao Zedong is actually a really good leader and cares about the people in China. Chiang Kai-shek just wants to be in power and takes all the money America gives him and builds himself like a big gold palace while people outside starve to death. The guy that America likes is actually a trash leader, whereas Mao Zedong is actually a better leader for the people of China. Doesn't take long that Mao Zedong here gets way more popular than Chiang Kai-shek. And Chiang Kai-shek here, all right, is a color picture of him, is forced to leave China. He is kicked out of China, all right, and he is forced to go to the island of Taiwan, which there's some arguments at the time whether or not China owns Taiwan, but they're forced to go to Taiwan. Now, the thing is that America refuses to acknowledge this power change. Mao Zedong 100%, once again, Mao Zedong 100% runs China. He is now the leader of China. It is now a communist country. This guy, Chiang Kai-shek, because he's a trash leader, had to flee to Taiwan. No longer in charge of China. We're all on the same page on that, all right? But America's like, nah. America is so committed to this idea of containment, America refuses to acknowledge Mao Zedong as the rightful leader, and America still claims it's this guy, Chiang Kai-shek, even though he's not even in the country. America's like, that's still a legit leader. They're still a democracy, or they're still national. They're still not communist. America just refuses to acknowledge this. This is really important. There's a reason America is so stubborn when it comes to China. It's because of the UN Security Council. Remember, China gets a vote on the UN Security Council, that group of 5 nations. Well, Russia was communist, that's bad enough. Now, if you try to let China be a communist nation, we can't let that happen. So America still claims this guy, Chiang Kai-shek, is the rightful ruler of China. So therefore, if it ever comes to a vote at the UN Security Council, this guy is actually the guy that gets to cast the vote, even though he's not even in China. But this guy in the United Nations gets to represent China because America pitches a big hissy fit and we get our way with that. We clearly look like jerks here. The rest of the world realizes this dude's not in charge anymore, but we still allow him to make all the decisions for China, a country that has rejected him and he's not even inside. So the question here is, how does Mao Zedong become the leader of China, even though Chiang Kai-shek had American support? So pause me, answer that completely, and we're moving on. So you're probably like, Mr. Rex, if you told us we were going to do the Korean War and we just talk about Chiang Kai-shek, Mao Zedong, and China, how does that connect? Ha 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 ha, glad you asked. We're getting ready to talk about that. So let's talk about Korea. All right, so everything here in yellow, that is China. Korea, all right, Korea is the orange country here, all right, that is above me, all right. So Korea is a single country. It's just the country of Korea. Little peninsula, it's kind of like a Florida, but it's further north than Florida would be in America. Anyway, so Korea is a peninsula, it's its own country, sticks off of China. You with me? All right, cool. So in World War II, Japan takes over a ton of stuff. All the stuff here that is orange here in Asia is stuff controlled by Japan. Japan takes over Korea during World War II. All right? So in World War II, you have Japan, you have China, you have Korea. All right? Japan owns all of this. When World War II ends, China gets China back. But you remember, and this was important, when I said that Russia wanted to take over stuff, and that's why they were helping us out to invade Japan, they ended up not having to do it. But right as we're dropping the atomic bombs, Russia declares war on Japan, even though they were not ready to do any invading or anything. Well, once that happened and Japan surrenders, all these countries get liberated from Japanese rule. So America, we go in and invade Korea to kick out any of the Japanese soldiers that are still there, and we come in from the south, marching north. Well, coming in from the north, marching south, was Russia. Russia's helping liberate Korea. Guess why? Because they want to own Korea and basically make it like a satellite nation. All right? They want it to be communist. America and Russia meet in the middle in Korea, and we're like, what are you doing here, Russia? And they're like, comrade, we're here to help, because they just wanted Korea. So we're like, no, we got Korea. And Russia's like, no, we have Korea. And there's a squabble over who gets to own Korea after World War II. America and make them a democracy, or Russia and make them communist. Well, logically, we decide to cut it in half. Cut it in half, and it's the 38th parallel. So it's two separate countries, North Korea and South Korea. North Korea is going to be communist. South Korea is going to be a democracy. All right, and it is divided in half at a line of latitude, all right, the 38th parallel. So you have North Korea, you have the 38th parallel divides it in half, and then South Korea. North Korea is communist, South Korea is a democracy. And you're still like, okay, what does this have to do with Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong? We're going to get to it. We're going to get to it because it's all going to merge together and all nice, neat, and connect. And you're going to be like, holy crap, this is crazy. So stay with me. All right. But the question here is, what happened to divide the country of Korea into half at the 38th parallel and basically make the North Korea and South Korea? So pause me, answer that completely, and we're moving on. Now, a pivotal thing you got to know about Korea and the Korean War up to present day, because when this is being recorded in 2022, and I imagine probably when you're watching this, unless something crazy has happened, North and South Korea are two separate countries still. Neither side want that. Korea, for their entire existence, prior to Russia coming in from the top and America coming in from the bottom, have always been a single country. They have the same culture, the same language, and all that. They want to be one country again. However, once the communist side becomes communist, they want both sides to be communist. The democracy wants both sides to be a democracy. So even though they both have this idea that they want to be one country again, they both want their new type of government to be what controls it, and that has caused tensions over time. But it's the exact same culture. This is the same language. I wouldn't even, obviously because I don't speak Korean, I don't know how big of an accent difference there is, if any, between North and South Korea. I don't know if somebody in Korea, just somebody who speaks Korean, can tell from a dialect if somebody's North Korean or South Korean, but it's the exact same group of people. So the people don't necessarily dislike each other, but they want to combine. All right. So let's go back here to this map. Let's go back to Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong. So when Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong were squabbling for power, that was happening at the same time with North Korea and South Korea. All right. So China, all right, at this point for this picture to start out with, China is not a communist country. Because at this point in time, and when I'm showing you this picture right here with China, Chiang Kai-shek is still in charge, and China is a nationalist country. It's not a democratic republic like America, but it's not communist. So China, nationalist. North Korea, communist. South Korea, a democracy. You have three different styles of government right here. They all just tolerate each other. Well then, when Mao Zedong, the communist, takes over in China, even though America won't acknowledge it, and Chiang Kai-shek has to flee to Taiwan, China is now communist. So China's communist, North Korea's communist, South Korea is a democracy. North Korea doesn't really talk to the other communist nations about this before they do it, and they should have. North Korea's like, ooh, oh, big red back here, old China. I bet if I invade South Korea and try to force them into being a communist country, China's going to have my back, and so will Russia, because why wouldn't they? So North Korea, once they see China has turned communist, that gives them the motivation and the confidence to invade South Korea. So all of a sudden one day, they have not talked to China about this at all. China's like, wait, what happened? North Korea invades South Korea. That is huge, all right? North Korea, a communist country, just invaded a democracy. That's going to tick off America. That's how we get involved, because now you have a communist country invading a democracy. Oh, no. Russia is going to stay out of this. Keep in mind, nobody wants World War III where we all die. When Russia sees this, they're like, good job, but we're not going to actually talk about this. See, Russia, if they openly support it, it looks like Russia is invading it. They don't want to start World War III, so Russia's like, holy crap, let's see how this plays out. So North Korea invades a democracy. America, king democracy, says, nah, brah. And America wants to come in here and wreck shop in North Korea, but before we can, we realize there's new rules to war. Dang it. We now have to ask permission to go to war. Who do we have to ask permission from? The United Nations. We have to go to the UN Security Council and be like, can we please declare war on North Korea? So this is clearly a hostile country that is invading a democracy. So when it comes down to the vote, the United States says, absolutely go to war. France and England are like, well, we have to say America? Yes, okay. And they say yes. So China, it's time for China to vote. Now, you're thinking, well, China's communist. There's no possible way that China is going to vote to go to war. Because keep in mind, it has to be unanimous. A single no vote means you don't go to war and you just let North Korea do their thing. All right? So obviously China, who's communist, they would love for North Korea to take over South Korea, even though they didn't expect it. They're like, you would think they'd be like, yes. However, remember, Mao Zedong here isn't the guy that gets to cast the vote for China. So even though communist China supports North Korea most likely, he doesn't get to cast the vote. The guy that gets to cast the vote is Chiang Kai-shek, the dude that's in Taiwan, not even in China, on the UN Security Council. And he says, America, what would you like me to vote since you've given me all this money? And America says, vote yes. That way we can go to war with North Korea. And Chiang Kai-shek says, yes. So right now it's 4 yes votes. America, France, England, and China, because Chiang Kai-shek got to cast the vote. In order to go to war and basically have the entire world declare war on North Korea. So there's one more person that gets to vote, Russia. You're like, well, Russia's not going to vote yes because why would, Russia supports communism. Why would they vote to go to war here? So, clearly this isn't going to go through. So I shouldn't laugh because it is ridiculous. So Russia, being communist, apparently doesn't really understand how democracy works when you vote on things. Russia, and rightfully so if we're being honest here, pretty ticked off about the fact that Chiang Kai-shek got to cast the vote for China. Russia, in protest of Chiang Kai-shek's ability to vote, protest this vote by refusing to vote. They don't show up. That's what this picture is. Empty seat where Russia would vote. When Russia doesn't vote, the vote is 4-0. That's unanimous. And the entire world declares war on North Korea. So the question here is, explain why Chiang Kai-shek's vote was so upsetting to Russia and who Russia thought should have gotten the vote here at the UN Security Council and why. So pause me, answer that completely. We're moving on. So you're probably thinking, oh, it's go time. The entire world, 53 United Nations countries, all declared war on North Korea. Oh, I bet they got a mud hole stomped in them, didn't they? Nope. Not at all. Because what happened here is, and America realizes this real quick. And so today, this is why America spends so much money on our military and realizing NATO's trash and as far as their military goes, it benefits, but militarily. When the world declares war on North Korea, basically the whole world is like, yeah, we're going to war. All right, America, go get them. Everybody just turns around and expects America to go do this all on our own. And America's like, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we got this. So America, this is the 1950s. It's been 5 years since we've been in a war. But we still all have our war stuff back here. So we go to dust it all off. If you've ever gotten in a car that has sat in a garage for 5 years, the chances of it starting are slim. So what happens is when America shows up here in North Korea in order to stop the invasion from South Korea, it does not go well. It doesn't go well at all. A lot of our equipment doesn't work. We crash. It's so bad. South Korea actually gets taken over pretty much by North Korea. We get beat very early on, very quickly, very heavily, very consistently by the North Korean military. The entire United Nations forces, which is, again, mainly America, gets pushed all the way back to the little edge of Busan, and man, what this looks like here, and it was very, very close to happening. It looks like the entire world declared war on a third world country of North Korea and got beat by them. If this had happened, and spoiler alert, obviously because it said it didn't, the United Nations is completely worthless. Like the whole world just falls apart pretty much, I think, here. Because this should not happen, but North Korea is aggressively pushing out the UN forces. So imagine there's a group of people down here in Busan that's about to get destroyed, and they're like, all right, oh my gosh, what do we do? We panic. And then somebody says, call him. And they're like, call who? And he's like, you know who I'm talking about. Call him, see if he can come save this. And they're like, No, you're not talking about, yes, I am. Call him. But he's so mean. He's going to yell at us and call us stupid. He will. He is. He's a jerk. But I bet he can fix it. And they're like, you know who they're talking about? You don't, because I haven't told you. Is a guy named Douglas MacArthur. This is the island hopping campaign general in World War II and the military genius. After World War II, this dude just hung out in Japan. He literally wrote their constitution for them after World War II. It's literally called the MacArthur Constitution. Still a thing over there. Wrote it on like a piece of paper. Like, here, use this. It's never even been amended. So they're like, go get him. He's up there in Japan. So somebody has to go up to Japan. Like, MacArthur. I imagine he's sitting there like, really oddly, and this is a whole, people in Japan really like him. This is the dude that supported atomic weapons on Japan. So it's a weird situation that he's like liked in Japan. But I imagine like feeding him grapes and he's like, yes, and like, we need you to like save the world again. He's like, oh, y'all can't do nothing right. So old Douglas MacArthur comes back with his pipe down here to South Korea at Pusan and is like, all right, let's see what we got here. It's like, oh, y'all stupid. And he just yells. He's an angry old man, not a likable person. Great military commander. And he's like, all right, let's see what we got here. All right, well, here's your problem. What you need to do, and let's go back to this map here. If you see all the red area, all right, he suggests invading while it's still the red area. They're on the left side in Incheon. Basically, invade behind enemy lines. And they're all like, no, this will never work. And he said, y'all came and got me. I'm the expert. I know how to win. Do it. So they load everybody up from Pusan, roll them around the left side of South Korea, and invade here at Incheon. He's usually right, and he is again here. Absolutely catches the North Koreans off guard and annihilates the North Korean army. Holy crap. It turns the war instant. So America was all like, oh my gosh, we're going to lose and containment's going to fail and communism is going to spread. And then like one battle and MacArthur just wrecks shop and North Korea doesn't have an army anymore. There's nobody defending North Korea. So not only does Douglas MacArthur come here and re-secure South Korea for the world, for democracy, he then invades North Korea. There's like no real resistance. He is just like rolling through North Korea. If you like, it's this picture here of him like smoking. That's supposed to be the North Korean flag because he smoked them. But he gets all the way up near the top of North Korea. It looks like now that Korea will be one country again, and it's going to be a democracy thanks to Douglas MacArthur. Hooray! So when he gets up to the very top of North Korea and he gets to the Yalu River, that is the border with China and North Korea, is the Yalu River. China invades North Korea so that North Korea doesn't stop being a communist country. So China comes at the end here to stop North Korea from being taken over by a democracy. So at the end of this war, the battle is actually between American troops and Chinese troops that have come over fighting here in North Korea. So even though China voted, yes, go to war, that was Chiang Kai-shek. Mao Zedong, the actual communist leader, is like, this is some bullcrap, we're not going to do it. So Douglas MacArthur, he's fighting the good fight, and he says, it's wild, he says, drop the atomic bomb on China. And they're like, what? And he's like, yes, drop the bomb on China. And it is wild. And they're like, no, you cannot drop the bomb on Japan. You want to nuke China? He's like, yes, we have nukes, let's use them. So the president at the time is Harry Truman, still the president. And he's like, dude, we dropped the atomic bomb on Japan, that was necessary. We are not dropping the atomic bomb on a country with 1 billion people. Like, 100% this is World War III. Like, I mean, it is, you cannot drop the atomic bomb. And MacArthur's like, do it. And Truman says, no, find another way of winning this war. We're not dropping the atomic bomb. So Douglas MacArthur goes on the news and calls America and calls Truman a coward. It says he don't have the stones to do it. He doesn't say stones. He's like, he's a coward. Our president's a coward. Now, the problem is the president is his boss. You can't talk trash to your boss like that, regardless of how good you are at your job. And Douglas MacArthur gets fired. And this is a picture I found of Truman and MacArthur. So MacArthur gets fired for basically talking trash about his boss. Well, without MacArthur, the war changes directions pretty quick. When MacArthur gets pulled out of North Korea, with the help of the Chinese are able to spread back down North Korea. And when they get down to the 38th parallel, here on the left, this is exactly where it started at. Both sides agreed to a ceasefire. This has been taking years now. They agreed to a ceasefire. All right. It is not a treaty. So, 1953, both sides are like, all right, we'll stop fighting, you stop fighting. Like, okay. You good? I'm good. You good? All right, I'm good. You good? I'm good if you're good. Are you good? You good? I'm good. Are you good? You good? You sure? You good? Me good? Okay. You're just not going to shoot each other. That's been happening for over 50 years now. Well, hold on. Almost 70 years now. This war technically is still going on. They do not shoot at each other anymore, but North and South Korea are still technically at war present day. All right. They agreed to stop fighting at the 38th parallel again, so nothing really changed in this war. But they've never had a treaty. A treaty is you come up with a final, resolution to whatever your conflict was. They both want to own the other one, but they want it to be in their image. So there's still drama today between North and South Korea. They have a ceasefire, so they don't actively fight. Sometimes there's some drama that happens in the oceans, like near the border, but it has never officially ended. So it's like one of the longest wars in history. And so North Korea. And then present day, North Korea has gotten kind of crazy. They've really committed. Like a lot of people starving to death. They do crazy stuff in North Korea. A lot of the rest of the world is like, dude. Even China's like, dude, just stop being so crazy. So North Korea is a very poor country. There's a lot of drama there, and it's more sad than anything else. A lot of crazy stuff happens in North Korea. South Korea is basically like America, but they speak Korean, like Kia, Hyundai. Samsung, I think I'm correct on that off the top of my head. Those are all South Korean companies. And it's a very affluent, very wealthy nation. North Korea, because they're communist, starvation is a serious concern for North Korea, which, if nothing else, shows you the long-term implications of these two systems. All right, so the question here is, the Korean War, as of 2022, has never officially ended, even though both sides want the same thing. Explain why a compromise can't be reached, even though both sides want the same thing. So this is an intricate American war, and so anybody that served in combat after World War II, there were, I think thousands and thousands and thousands of Americans died in the Korean War. You may never even heard about it prior to this lesson, but you have now. When we get to Vietnam, which you've heard a lot about, we'll talk about why Vietnam is so much more famous than the Korean War, even though, in all actuality, there's relatively similar wars. All right, that's what I got for you guys today. After you answer that, I'll see you guys tomorrow.